Perakis, Chair of the National Hellenic Society. It's my pleasure to host you this afternoon for a very informative and educational discussion about one of the most affected industries during the pandemic, travel and tourism. And with us today, we have three wonderful, experienced and informative experts in the field of tourism and travel. And we're happy to be able to do this, have them joining us from all over the globe. And again, with us as an organization partnering with the National Hellenic Museum in Chicago's Oral History Project, we try to bring to you obviously topics that are important to not only our culture and our heritage, but also present day events and things that are happening around in our lives. So I'll begin right at the top with Tim Ananiadis. Tim, welcome. Probably a familiar face for those of you that have been to Athens over the past decades, going to the Grand Britannia. Tim was the first general manager, but now and then became the area manager for the Grand Britannia, and overseeing all of the Starwood affiliated hotels in both Greece, Turkey, Cyprus, and the Balkans. Tim has really extensive experience in the industry, international experience in the hospitality industry for over 40 years, spending a lot of time with Hyatt. He's been all over the world, here in the States, in Chicago and Miami, just to name a few, and of course, spending time at Thessaloniki as well as in Athens. And Tim presently is heading up the tourism committee for the American Hellenic Chamber of Commerce in Athens, and I'm sure doing some wonderful work as well on this side. So Tim, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Plato Ghinos, who is the president of the Shaner Hotels. Plato's been involved with them since 1995 in all aspects of the operation. We'll get to learn more about them. They're an operator, developer, a marketer of multiple hotel and restaurant properties. And they've also have expanded internationally, primarily in Italy. But most recently, Plato was able to form a partnership with another hospitality group in Athens and is looking to expand in both Greece and Cyprus. So we'll get a great hands-on understanding of Plato's outlook for not only this summer, but also talk up a little bit about that partnership and how that came to be. And then finally, Christos Perakis, the co-founder and CEO of Zootle, which is an early stage Greek startup, also based here in the United States, that's focused in the hospitality industry. It's a company that's provided a disruptive technology in the hotel space, primarily dealing with hotel service, the Wi-Fi service that most hotels offer, and how best to engage and interact with customers so the hotels can maximize not only profitability, but also engagement and activity at their hotels. So gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I'll start right with Christo. Christo, I want you to talk a little bit more about obviously your company, yourself, and what you're working on. So I'll turn the floor over to you, and then we'll move on to the next panelist.
Thanks. So contrary to Plato and Tim, I'm an accidental hospitality participant. I spent 15 years at Apple. I managed a $2 billion territory, opening Apple's offices in Constantinople, Tel Aviv, Abu Dhabi, and invested early in the Greek startup ecosystem and fell in love with this technology called Zootle. At the time, it was pretty much everywhere. It was in bars and restaurants, IKEA, the mall at Athens Airport. But then we started realizing that the real value of the data was helping hotels, right? So again, I knew nothing about the hotel industry, 10 years ago when we started this. So we're really excited now. We're in 12 countries, about 1,000 locations. Independent properties is pretty much our sweet spot, but we're in some larger management companies. I'm sure both Tim and Plato know Sage Hospitality and Benchmark and Pyramid and those kind of guys. So really excited to participate. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, Christo.
Oh, I'm sorry. And you didn't mention that I was going to say, and
yeah.
You didn't mention that Tim also is within his facility has one of the nicest cigar lounges in all of Greece.
Thank you. That's very good. Actually, it's very well used.
That's something we should definitely check out next time.
That's right.
Chris, actually, I'll do a quick follow up before we move on to Plato. Tell us specifically for those that anyone that goes to a hotel. How does your service work, and how does it help the hotel? For instance, give us an example.
So again, we stumbled upon this, right? So majority of hotels, maybe a little bit different from Tim's perspective with him being a branded hotel, but on a global perspective, let's say 50% of guests are booking through OTAs. In independents, maybe that's 70 or even 80%, and the OTAs actually don't share any of that data back with the property. So if you don't have that email address, property can't send a follow-up email for a satisfaction survey or a coupon or promotion to rebook and that kind of stuff. So basically we work with the hotel to install a marketing component on the Wi-Fi. Every guest that connects, we're capturing their data through a Facebook, an email, a Twitter, a LinkedIn. It doesn't really matter. As long as they connect with some method, we're capturing that data and giving it back to the hotel. So then the hotel can basically advertise and say, okay, hey, before you check out, why don't you make a reservation via OpenTable or eat at our restaurant or go to our spa or, do an experience, that kind of stuff. So at a high level, that's how we work.
Wonderful. Thank you, Christos. Plato.
Thank you, Drake, and thanks for having such an important topic selected, because as we know, tourism and travel industry is maybe one of the most important industries globally, not only Greece and the US, but it's a huge economic driver. So again, I've been in this industry for about 40 years now with the Shana Hotel Group. We own, develop, and manage 62 properties, and we have about 7 properties under development. We are based in the US, a fully integrated company where we manage every aspect of the business from reservations, engineering, benefits, accounting, marketing, e-commerce, purchasing. So everything is under one roof. We have about 170 associates at our corporate office and about 4,000 employees worldwide. We are in 17 states in the US. We're in the Bahamas, Italy, and Athens. So we have expanded over the last 10 plus years overseas. So we can taste the different flavors. Our properties are really mixed from resorts to business hotels, convention hotels. So we have probably every aspect of and segment of the industry. We are 90% franchised with the hotel companies. Mostly, most of our portfolio is affiliated with the Marriott Corporation, and then we have some Hiltons and ISGs. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you, Plato. And Tim, the floor is yours.
Well, after spending 40-something years as an active member of the hospitality industry, I decided to leave the day-to-day operations. I'm still involved with the boards of our previous ownership, besides the American community, besides the AmCham involvement. And the interesting part is, as our discussion goes on, I've had the pleasure for the last close to 20 years working with Greek families, including the Laskaridis family, that they invested a lot of their personal wealth into the hospitality industry, even though they come from a totally different background in terms of their professional expenditures. And it's interesting that over the years, rather than getting out of the industry, they actually invest more because they see the value of our industry as a whole.
Thank you. So I'm going to start. Let's first start on maybe on a global perspective, and I'd like to get all three of your opinions on this and where you see we're currently at. before we kind of look into the summer and beyond is, like any industry, whether it's real estate, pharmaceuticals, consumer goods, travel and tourism has its ups and downs as well, depending on economies, depending on world events. And certainly the pandemic was, I don't think there's any better word to really say. It was really extremely damaging to a lot of industries, to a lot of companies, and of course, personally, to a lot of people. And your industry took a major hit, primarily the airline industry, traveling to multiple areas, and then tie in the restrictions and the regulations you had. Even as we had some opportunities over the last 2 years, primarily in the summer, where there was a little bit of a lull in terms of the pandemic cases, that people were able to jump in and get a little bit of travel, but for the most part, there still was a hesitancy for people to really get out there. And now we're entering kind of a new phase here where it's become more manageable and so forth, but there's still a lot going on as the industry kind of breaks through and kind of slowly comes back to some sense of normalcy. At the same time, though, I think there's a balancing act that's happening. There's a lot of us that, including myself, that will be traveling overseas this summer, and we've had that pent up frustration and angst to get out and get back on trips, like we may have before this period. But unfortunately, we're kind of being hit at one end by the excitement of getting out and traveling again and doing that, but we're feeling obviously the pressure, some worldly pressures of we've seen energy become a major factor in terms of pricing over the last year, and more recently over the past few to several months, inflationary pressures, and of course the situation in Ukraine. So I'd love to hear from each of you, and maybe we'll start this time with Tim first, and then we'll go to Plato and Christos. Kind of get your perspective of how you see things globally. What's working?
Yeah.
What's kind of the trends, and how the industry has changed because of the pandemic, but also how it's reacting to current world events. So I'll start with you, Tim.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, the pandemic was an unprecedented event. I mean, our industry went through wars, went through economic crises, geopolitical crisis, and we've seen the ups and downs, but we never shut down hotels, we never shut down cruise companies, we didn't shut down airlines. I mean, that was something that none of us predicted and none of us knew how to deal with it. I think that the industry, whoever survived 2020 actually will survive anything from now on. We are back, but we're back in segments. We're back, some of the hotel side. If you're not in the convention business, you're doing better. If you're in the convention hotel, you're doing a little bit less well because that segment has not come back yet. The countries that they have domestic tourism are doing much better than the ones depended on international tourism. And of course, the cruise industry is very slow to come back. And I keep going to the cruise industry because our hotels, a lot of our destinations depend on the cruise industry. I mean, they feed off of the cruise industry, either directly or indirectly. So we are at a stage that the pandemic is fairly behind us in the Western world. I think South Asia and China are still feeling the effects. The war so far has not affected, the war in Ukraine, I mean, has not directly affected any of our business. Definitely not in the US, and from what I understand, even in Greece. And the inflation, or the perspective of inflation, the energy crisis is creating a problem for us more on the profitability line. One thing that we do need to mention, because it's a big issue over the last since the pandemic actually, is labor. Lack of labor, and the increase in labor costs to the hotels, because in a hotel, and I'm sure Plato will agree to that, it's one of the major costs of a hotel operation or a tourism service industry. It's a labor cost. It can go anywhere from 30 to 50% of your profit and loss statement. So that is a big question mark in terms of the viability of the businesses as you go into a normal operation for the hotels and the industry in general. So we are out of the pandemic, but we have challenges in front of us that we still have to work through over the next few years.
Thank you very much, Tim. Plato, love to hear your perspective and your experience.
Yeah, I think Tim has said it very correctly. I mean, let's turn the clock back to the second quarter of 19 and 20. That year and a half has been, I think, catastrophic for the travel industry, hospitality industry. I mean, airports shut down, not only hotels, restaurants, the whole sector was shut down, and everybody was fighting for survival. Now, what's interesting is, as we move to the next stage, after the pandemic, the lessons we learned, the new world order kind of has brought new challenges. We have seen a lot of the different municipalities, countries, through the pandemic, it was kind of an anarchy, different rules for different cities, different countries. So starting, with the lockdowns, cities were locked down, countries were locked down, and the longer the lockdown was in those areas, the longer the recovery has been. I mean, that's statistically, we see that on our hotel portfolio, where the larger cities with lockdowns, that much slower to come back. We have different, the mask mandate, and again, everybody thinks the pandemic is over, but it was last week where the city of Philadelphia in the US decided by itself to impose the mask mandate again. And 3 days later, after everybody got embarrassed, they lifted it up. So those kind of, I call them different shock waves coming from different sources are affecting our industry. We have the whole, we forgot the whole vaccination procedures and certificates that really hindered the travel and the movement of our guests, had the global effect, not only in the US, but in Greece. And I think it's a good time to compliment Greece of being extremely progressive, comparing Greece to different countries or different competitors worldwide by making it easy for the customer to travel or board a plane and get out of a plane. But what Tim said too, it's the new world order. Labor is a huge issue. Where has everybody gone? It's during the pandemic, at least in the US, we laid off approximately 6 million positions. We only have rehired 2 million, and everywhere you go, and you see job openings, and we are competing with retail. We are competing with every other industry. So the competitive segment is not only in our industry, but we compete for labor with a lot of other industries, and that's a natural creation of inflation, which it's a huge issue on every cost. It's not just labor, but you see this the supply chain issues that everybody's facing. I mean, we never had issues with trying to open up a brand new hotel, and we had to go to a Walmart or another retail store to buy pillowcases or soap because our deliveries are 6 to 8 months behind. Same, with food deliveries. You have a big wedding, and all of a sudden, the food company and the big companies out there said, our trackers, we don't have enough trackers. We cannot deliver your food on on Friday for your weekend wedding. So we're learning to survive in a different environment, not normal environment. So we have, all those pressures and, the inflationary part, which I think we all are watching carefully. We see the gas prices as of last week, at least, with the Marriott Corporation, the increase of gas prices has not affecting the booking pace. So we are hopeful. The positive thing, if there is anything positive out of a pandemic, I think it has driven the consumer to be willing and be eager to travel. Again, especially leisure destinations are saving our industry. The consumer is out there. They're spending money on trips. I'm bullish on that segment. The big question we're trying to answer and following up, when is the corporate market coming back? When our companies are going to start traveling, meeting, the big conventions? So that's the big question mark, I think, worldwide. We start to see an uptick, and the numbers we are looking at is direct correlation between office occupancies and hotel occupancies. The more people move back to the office for a day or two a week, the traffic is increasing. So that's, again, it's all new statistics, new measurements, how to measure our demand.
Thank you. Chris, so you're not a manager, developer, an operator of a hotel, but you're providing a service. So you're contracting and negotiating to hotels, and you're doing this in a slowly favorable environment, but also against a lot of the pressures that Plato just mentioned and Tim alluded to in terms of labor costs and a lot of issues that hotels are dealing with to get out of the pandemic and kind of move forward and kind of create this new sustainable business model. So how are you seeing it from your perspective as a providing a service to hotels and groups?
Yeah. So if I not really sure if Tim and Plato would agree with this, but STR is probably one of the leading industry statistics companies out there, right? And what's very interesting is every time we would look at the reports in the past, it was always based on the previous quarter, the previous year. If you look at all their metrics now, it's all based on 2+ years ago, right? They're just considering the past 2 years were just zero. So when you're saying, just to put that in perspective, right? So when they're saying that overall, for example, the U.S. Is at about 9% down, it's 9% compared to 2 years ago, right? So for us, we did what we thought was right. We basically didn't charge any one of our customers during, the pandemic, right? We're not a water utility or power that they have to have on, right? If they don't have customers in there. So, the impact for us for 18 months, we had 98% less revenue. That's pretty much zero, right? So that's how it impacted us. The other thing that's pretty interesting from an STR perspective, if you chop and look at the data, what's interesting is, yes, you see places like New York and Boston that compared to 2019 are still 30 or 40% down. But if you look at the warm areas, right, they're 10, 20, 30. If you look at the Caribbean, right, they're 35% up. So, that's, for example, for us, we look at that, data-driven decision-making. We say, okay, if that makes sense, let's focus in those areas, right? So what I really loved about, hospitality, I did see a lot of adaptability, right? So, of course, people got laid off, right? And what the hoteliers that we work with had to do is they've adapted and they've created both hybrid and or regional roles, right? You used to have somebody that was a revenue manager, and now he's a revenue and sales and marketing and, maybe not F&B, right? But they're doing 5 jobs, right? Or before, maybe they used to only do a job for one hotel. Now they're doing it over 4 or 5 hotels, right? Now, how that impacts us is, mind share, right? Before, we could get in front of people within a day or two, right? Now sometimes it takes us 2 or 3 weeks to get in front of people because they've got, 50 other fires they need to put out. Something else that I thought was kind of interesting that I've seen are 2 things. One, we're actually seeing, again, maybe some of this is me jumping some data points and maybe trying to connect them. But we're seeing satisfaction surveys, something like a TripAdvisor or anything like that. We're actually seeing them increase, and what we're seeing is the expectation. We deal with Net Promoter Score, so we're a licensee of NPS. What we're seeing is the expectations from the guests have actually decreased. Right? They're now okay with the room being cleaned at the beginning, and if they really need it, to call. Right? In the past, if somebody wasn't there cleaning every day, TripAdvisor, negative review, right? That kind of stuff. So we're actually seeing the expectation from guests is actually decrease to a certain degree, so they're happier, right? You can look at it that way. And I guess the final thing that I've noticed is, in the past, when we talked to our customers, it was always about planning for the future, right? It was always about, number one thing we want to talk about is how do we underline and focus on long-term growth, right? And I'm not saying long-term growth is not important, but now the number one topic is how do we maximize the short-term revenue? How do we get every dollar out of that wallet while that guest is there? Charge them that $15 for a late checkout. Make sure that they eat at our restaurant instead of going across the street, right? Buy a cigar from Tim's lounge and not go to Miami's down the corner, right? Which I know where that is well too. So anyway, hopefully that was useful.
So, Christos, tell us, for those that aren't familiar with the buzzwords, STR.
Sorry. So it originated from Smith Travel Resources. Smith was the guy that started it, and that's what STR stands for.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
It's the Bible of our competitiveness. Okay. So I just wanted to add something to what Chris said, and Plato I'm sure will agree with this. We were always a short-term industry. We could never look beyond 6 months a lot of times. So we wanted to be, and this pandemic made it shorter yet. That's the nature of our industry, is to look into a short-term solution. And Chris is right. Now it's becoming a much shorter than the 6 months, 8 months that we looked at.
If I may add too,
yes, please.
I don't mean to contradict Christos, but what we see in our portfolio too, the consumer, the customer has changed too. The pandemic has maybe increased the level of expectations. You go to different restaurants, there's a sign in front saying, you're going to be seated at, you're going to be served at least 30 minutes late. It's all relates to labor shortages. And so the consumer was trained for a bit there, but we start seeing that changing. The expectations are changing. And as an industry, again, we are lucky that we can change our rates. So yes, we are charging more at every hotel. We're just trying to keep up with inflation. So the consumer feels the increase. So their expectation is moving higher and higher. So it's getting maybe a little bit more difficult. And let's don't forget, a lot of our customers come from airplanes. And for the last year or so, we have seen the airplane behavior really deteriorating from a consumer behavior. So it's I see a lot more incidents and a lot of more aggression. And again, our biggest enemy in our industry, Airbnb, is facing a lot of issues with unofficial parties and different criminal situations that are happening in their establishment. So it's again, it's a new world order. That's what I said at the beginning, and we're learning something every day. I think that's why we're staying young. Am I right, Tim?
That's right.
I'm going to go back to Tim, and let's shift a little bit of gears and let's talk about Greece. Obviously, big picture and specifics, and I'll let you. I'll let the three of you get into any specifics you'd like. Obviously, Plato, I'd love to hear about your experience of, why you decided to go to Greece, other than you're Greek, of course, but why did the company decide to go to Greece and your experiences? But I'll start with Tim, because Tim, you were in a featured article, I believe it was the National Herald several weeks back.
Yeah,
had a focus on travel and tourism, and they had a lot of guest collaborators, and you were one of them. And you brought some interesting perspective for us, kind of kind of to frame the discussion. That we all know Greece is a relatively small country, and we know the majority of the businesses in Greece, specifically in travel and tourism as well, are small businesses, micro businesses, as some would say. A lot of them are family-oriented businesses, and so a lot of hotels and so forth in Greece, especially if you get outside the cities, but in the cities as well, are locally owned, family-owned boutiques. And Greece. You made a great statement saying that Greece, started with a classical tourism model, and they've slowly shifted to that potential of and Plato mentioned leisure. Tell us a little bit about that in terms of how Greece has transformed over the decades, and really where are they at today?
Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Look, we are what I like to call a mature destination, or a destination where it's been around forever. And as new, we were the darling of the European vacation, but in a different way. It was more long-term tourism or drive-in traffic, so whatever you want to call it. We had to transform, in a way to improve the infrastructure, and secondly, find reasons for people to come back to Greece and rediscover Greece, I would say. And that's what's happening now. What's happening right now is, over the last few years, actually right after the Olympics, because it goes all the way back there, all of a sudden there is a renewed interest in Greece, and there is renewed interest in more real authentic destinations, and not made up authentic destinations, if that makes sense. One of the Greece's problem, and Plato is very aware of it, and I'm sure it's Chris with his customers also, is that sometimes extreme seasonality, which we don't have really the domestic tourism to support us. We don't have the regional tourism so far, weekend business, conferences to support the winter months. So from the investment perspective, anybody that's going into Greece, they got to realize that even in Athens, you have a seasonality issue that you need to deal with. It's getting better. Actually, it's gotten much better in 19, and then of course with the pandemic when we rolled back. So now we have a situation where the islands and the summer destinations, they get overwhelmed, 100% occupancy from mid-June to mid-September, and then they need to struggle to get the off season and the shoulder seasons filled up. So if there is a challenge for Greece, is how do we expand the season, and how do we get the more regional market to visit Greece the way they visit Rome, the way they visit Madrid, the way they visit other destinations, that they continue to be busier during the winter period.
Plato, I'd love to have you give us your perspective of Shaner, and obviously starting with Italy, but your expansion into Greece and Cyprus, and the plans there, and the rationale behind that, and the reason for that.
Yeah, just to give you a perspective here, it's we'll look at it more as a global, our industry is a global industry, and the competition is global. And again, being Greek and having grown up in Greece, and I've been there every year of my life, coming back again as back at the homeland, but also for business, I always was looking for the opportunity to come back. And I think through the last, I would say 5-7 years, I have seen not only the improvement, that rejuvenation that Tim was saying, and again, comparing Greece to the global competitors, which it's sometimes really hard to make some of the Greek people understand, yet you're competing, and same with Italy, you're competing with Italy, you're competing with Spain, you're competing with the Dominican Republic, you're competing with Vietnam. Again, if a consumer decides to go on a vacation, again, it's the same type of plane that can take you to Athens, Crete, or Hanoi, or Malaga. So it's we need to look at it at a more global perspective. So we have been in Italy for about 15 years now, and specifically in Tuscany. That's our presence. And what I noticed, both especially in Greece and Italy, is the lack of brands in hotels. I would say about 80% of the properties are family-owned with no branding behind it. And again, as globalization, good or bad, brands are expanding. Brands bring that exposure to a global market. So we saw that effect in Italy. We were very successful converting a couple of properties to, one in a Renaissance resort and the other one is an autograph resort. We saw the success and the opportunity for markets like Italy and Greece to really expand their customer base. It's not only the German or the British family coming during those, the May season or the summer season, but you have Asia, you have South America picking up. So again, brands help you expand your market base, and I think Tim is absolutely right. And I think over the last, I would say pre-pandemic, you saw a lot of the islands expanding their season, from 6 months to 8 months, and I think eventually I foresee no reason why Crete couldn't be a 12 months destination, even Athens. Again, I want to put that in a nice way. I always was viewing Greece as the Florida of the US. So you have all the Northern Europeans, like all the northern states in the US, everybody flocks down during winter to a better weather. Everybody is missing the blue sky. And, nobody likes to be in the dark after 4:30 in the afternoon. So Greece has all the physical, topographical advantages to establish itself as kind of the Florida of Europe. So, starting with its basic climate issues, the reputation, again, the history, and I think also, I have seen the services really improve from infrastructure. I'm very bullish that I think this year is the first year ever there are 9 direct flights from the US to Athens. I mean, that's, multiply that times 250, 300 seats. That's daily new customers coming to Greece. That's phenomenal. That's putting it on a global base. The other part we need to always keep into consideration is safety. And, Greece is still perceived as a very safe destination, no issues. Good thing we don't have strikes, we don't have the riots we used to have several years ago, which gave us bad publicity. It's really becoming a family-oriented destination. The nice part about it too is the Greek, tourism sector has moved up the ladder. Before it used to be the kind of the all-inclusive, lower-end tourists coming to Greece, which is really less effective economically to Greece. Right now, it's the higher-end customer, the families, people who are willing to come and spend a lot more money. And by spending more money, your expectations are higher. And Greece is really offering, those advantages. From a business perspective, I want to be honest with you. I mean, Greece always had the reputation of being bureaucracy and all that stuff. I mean, Italy is 10 times worse. I can testify on that. So I really want to compliment kind of the whole Greek environment becoming much more business friendly. I think they finally got it to become, a major player in the global society. So it's I'm bullish about it. Again, climate, history, culinary experience, in addition to the renovation and improvement of the airports, the direct opening, the air traffic. It's like our experience in the Caribbean, we live and die from air traffic. You need the airlines to be friendly to the airlines. They want to bring the customer in. So I see all those positive things falling into place. I think the pandemic has set everybody back 2 years. So it's kind of a restart. What Christos said before, we compare numbers to 2019, because 2020 was a non-existent year in our industry. So it's so a lot of macroeconomic and some great policies. Again, the other point that I wanted to make is the whole vaccination nonsense and mask mandates. Greece was maybe the most progressive Southern European country last year, where a vaccination certificate let you to come in. You don't need those tests. You don't need the constant, like Italy is still going into Italy. We need to be tested 24 hours before. Greece has dropped it, so it's a competitive advantage. People are sick and tired of the tests and the mask mandates. We see the same thing in the Caribbean, where we're in the Bahamas. Our guests after 3 days have to be tested again, and then tested again coming back to the US. That's nonsense. Other islands like the Arubas, the Dominican, they have eliminated all the tests that really frustrates the customers. So it's, again, I'm bullish with what I see, and I believe the future is very bright.
Thank you. Very, very well said, Plato. I appreciate it. I'm going to start with Chris on the next set of questions, and then I'll open it up to Tim and Plato to add. Plato, you just touched upon it as well. One of the and I think Tim did too, is one of the table setters for all of this is having a government that's open and progressive, and slowly turning that, as you said, Plato, that culture of years and years ago, or the perception of the culture of just everything being red tape and bureaucracy and slow to respond, slow to react. And as the tourism, which is obviously a vital industry for Greece, has changed and transformed, it's critical, obviously, that the government plays its role, which it sounds like it is doing. Of course, there's always more that could happen, right? And that investors, obviously, investors like yourself, or operators like yourself, are looking to get into countries like Greece because they see that opportunity, that it's riding in the right direction. So, Chris, I'll start with you. What do you, from your vantage point, how do you see? Because obviously you've spent a lot of time in Greece as well, Christos. How do you see the role that the government's played and potential investors have come in? How has that changed in kind of the trajectory of Zootle as you've seen the landscape change in the hotels, or the makeup of the hotels over the past decade?
So obviously the stability of an economy and a government are of catamount importance in any industry. When a country though is hitting, we have COVID, and we've had COVID for 2 years, but Greece pre-COVID had Brexit, right? So that hit. That was like a left punch, right punch, and stomach gut punch all together for the Greek tourist industry.
And also let's not forget the fires too, right?
And the fire, yeah.
Natural events affect as well.
So, taken, out of, if it's hard to take out of, the discussion politics, right? But, the current government has gained trust of the world, of the world, right? So, and that means from a politics perspective, from a funding perspective, they're paying some of their IMF loans, 4 years in advance. They're raising, capital at 1/6 the rate of that they were, 3-4 years ago. Again, when we started Zootle in Greece, pre-Zootle, and that was European investment fund money coming into the country, it would take you, 4 or 6 months to start a company, right? When we started 7 years ago, it took us, 3.5 weeks. Now you're talking, it'll take 3.5 days, right? So there's a lot of stuff. I went and got my son was 14. We were in Paros, right? Not even in Athens. You used to have to go to Athens, the Athens, police department or passport office. I went to Paros, we were in Paros, and On the spot, he got his police ID. Of course, we needed the right documents, right? And we applied for his passport, and he got his passport mailed to us, or actually sent via boat. And we went to the police station. I think it was 13 days later to get it, right? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that was unheard of, right? So you have that. You have the government, making incentives for people to become Greek citizens for investments. We're talking about digital nomads and really trying to be able to work from anywhere. Why not work in Greece, right? So because of that, and being able to have, still, I mean, it's not, again, I know this is not specifically for tourism, but because of this confidence, you have Tesla opening an office in Greece, and Amazon opening an office in Greece, and Apple, which I used to work at, opening an office in Greece, and Microsoft, they just announced, whatever it is, a couple $1 billion, not just data center, but, a dam electricity project. And you have all these investments that are happening. So, it is getting a little more frothy, and, labor rates, especially in the technology sector, are increasing, right? But it's still, lower than the European average, and definitely much lower than the US. So it still makes significant sense, right? And I think, management companies like a Shaner, right? There's huge opportunities, because I still think, yes, there's negatives, right? So they already talked about it much better than I ever could, but you have a shorter, scale, right? Maybe it's 5 months, right? Especially northern Greece, whatever, but you can extend it. But so that investment is not gonna, you can't really have that revenue stream coming over 12 months. Maybe it's coming over 6 months, but still the property values compared to equivalent in, something in the US is significantly less, right? I think one of the opportunities for, management companies like Ashaner is helping with discovery, right? They Tim talked about this as well. You have all these mom and pop places, right? And because they don't know how to advertise and market, what are they doing? They're putting on booking.com, and 90% of their revenue is coming from OTAs, which means they're losing 20% of their margin. I mean, somebody like a Shaner comes in and says, okay, we're going to create a soft brand in Greece, and we're going to call it, Plato's Dream Boutique.
Plato's Retreat.
Right? And all of a sudden, people hear about it, and you just advertise that one thing, and then people go to that website and they can see the 12, 15 locations, right? So that's from a discovery perspective, but you're also about leverage, right? So each one of these hotels, they have to have their own F&B manager, their own marketing manager, their own revenue optimization, right? You have a small group, right? There's the difference, right? In Greece, I don't know what the exact number is, Tim, you can, right? Maybe there's less than 30 groups that have 10 or more hotels, right? Everything is...
Actually, yeah, it's a lot less than that. Yeah, it's quite frankly, when with Marriott, when Marriott took over Starwood was the biggest chain in Greece in terms of international chains, and we only had 5 hotels in Athens that they were branded, like Plato said, and the regional chains, although some of them are very good, there's no question about it. The original chain is the original chain. They can only do so much to bring a new customer into the exposure to the international market. That's a major problem for Greece. And I need to say that because Plato also mentioned it, the lack of branding within, especially in some destinations that they're trying to develop themselves. And one thing I wanted to mention, what you mentioned about the government. In my 20 years since when I came back to Greece from the States, I was always frustrated with the choice of ministers for tourism. They were political appointments, but no real interest in our industry. The last few years, the people that they were in that ministry, they were legitimately involved in promoting tourism, and they had a legitimate interest in improving the services and the marketing efforts for Greece. So that I have to say that, because that kudos to them, because I feel that over the last few years there was the interest that we lacked, in previous administrations.
So it seems like, and I'll let Plato jump in. So it seems like there's still a lot of potential, right? I mean, there's opportunities to grow the industry. Yes, it's transformed, but you could definitely, there's opportunities to. I mean, think of the richness of the country. Never mind one section of the country, but the richness of the entire country. I mean, is it a question of you need to bring the infrastructure at a much higher level in terms of, how do you better monetize certain parts?
The industry is evolving. I mean, the new investors in Greece, like Plato's company, are different than the typical investors before in our, in the hospitality industry, at least. The same with the infrastructure companies that are involved in the services they provide. Greece, from my perspective, is still reasonable in terms of investment. The difference is that that an investor that goes into Greece that gets an existing properties, they should be prepared to invest in that property to change the look and feel of the property and brand it if they can, because that sometimes what makes a big difference in the future development of the property.
I think somebody had a question, threw a question, and before Plato, your answer, I don't know if this number is accurate or not, but it sounds legitimate. Is 40 million visitors every year go visit Southern Florida to see a popular mouse, all right, Mickey Mouse,
Right.
And can the current infrastructure in Greece support that many tourists coming in a year, or is it just has to evolve based on a lot of the
much more than
information,
more than that.
Yeah.
Much more than that. The problem right now is that 80% of the tourists come in a 2.5 to 3 month period.
Right.
That's where you feel the pressure.
And I think, Drake, Greece doesn't need a mouse. It's it's a theme park already. It's
right.
And I'm really shocked and actually proud because Greece as a destination has a blue chip name. It's you go to Tuscany, you go to Greece. It's good sounding destinations. You don't need to sell the destination; it sells itself. Now, new markets, and again, I'm more of a globalist. It's you go to Vietnam or you go to a Pacific island. You question, okay, where is it? How do I get there? What's there to do? You say Greece, you say Athens, you say islands, it's already sold. So, and the other big advantage too is, and I need to compliment the employees in Greece, even though, we have the labor restrictions, it's a lot more restrictive than other countries, but they all speak a second language, Again, you go to Italy, we're having English lessons for our about 200 Italian employees. Nobody speaks English. They only speak Italian. Spain is the same thing. So it's how do we take advantages of all the pluses we have, which sometimes as Greeks we don't realize it. We are stuck solving other people's problems, but we have so many basic advantages. How do you create the formula to make it work? But somehow, I'm bullish because it's coming together. And, the recognition, the global recognition is there. And Tim is absolutely right, with a better campaign. And a lot of my friends, I recommend them between June and September, don't go to Greece, find their shoulder season, to go enjoy. Is it, the culinary experience, the history, everything can be enjoyed a nice day with 60, 65 degrees. You don't need to be there when it's 90 degrees. So it's, I think, a better education to a better information to the global consumer would be of help. But I think they're going to get there. It's a matter of time.
All of us are in agreement that Greece has a lot of potential as a destination. There is room for improvement, but I also agree that the infrastructure, the interest of the government, the new investment coming in, and more importantly, what Plato said, because I've had the same experiences. Everybody assumes that that if you hire an employee in a foreign country away from the US, that they speak English, or at least they can communicate. Greece is one of the very few countries that actually that exists. And more importantly, you have a labor force that is long term. They don't easily switch from one company to the other that we're used to in the States. I mean, they're there with you for the long term, which helps with the longevity and the seniority of your labor force.
We can't, even though we have all those Greek gods, we can't change the weather, right? So as great as it is, the season is what it is. So, in order to, maybe you can't extend, right, your revenue from a day's perspective, but what we can continue to do is increase our ADR, and the average daily rate. And in order to do that, we need to have a higher quality product, right? And I think that's happening. I think a lot of the mom and pop boutique shops, they opened on land that, families had, and because they had the land, they built a hotel, but then their children have inherited that. And now, luckily they've gone, and a lot of them have gone to, overseas and worked overseas and gone to school to learn about, the hospitality industry. So they themselves are improving the product, and by improving the product, they're able to charge more money. So I think, to me, that's very, very positive. And I think, ultimately, it's a double-edged sword. I know we need to continue looking, what's going outside, right? What's outside of our borders, and how people, what's going on in Italy and what's happening in Turkey. And hey, this is going to be a great year because Turkey is doing X, Y, Z. And, but what I think, kind of like the NPS, Net Promoter Score, you should never really compare yourself against others. You should really compare yourself against yourself over time. So I think, to me, I'd rather us, continue to improve, compare ourselves, compared to, okay, maybe not last year, but compared ourselves to maybe from 2019 before, and just, continue to improve on every metric that we can. So.
Great. Thank you. Plato, final comments.
Final comments, I think, last but not least, and as an industry, we don't often speak about it, but again, it's a new world order. I think safety for employees and safety for our customers is huge. Unfortunately, from personal experiences, having probably Chicago, Minneapolis, Portland, Oregon, those markets are gone for a long time because nobody feels safe anymore. Again, take a negative, make it a positive to Greece, to maintain the safety for tourists, the safety for employees is huge. Again, because we see it here in the US, some of those markets are collapsed. People won't book, conventions won't come back. So, let's not forget that part. And I'm proud to say, we feel pretty safe in Greece, and compared to other islands and destinations, again, it's an important, huge factor which can play a huge role in the short term and long term. So, again, thank you for having such a great topic selected, and I'm again bullish for the industry worldwide. Get people to travel, right, and spend money.
Shane, Plato, quick plug for Shana. What's your hotel in Athens?
Academia Hotels.
Academia.
Yeah.
Perfect. Personal thank you. I think everyone on this call is intimately involved. Certainly, Tim and Plato, your long-term commitment and what you brought to the table and experience is certainly as a traditional people in the industry has helped Greece come a long way. And Christo, you can't say enough about a startup that's looking to help and move along as the industry evolves, and being a good player and complementing the work of the hotels and the operators in Greece, and even us as a nonprofit organization. We kicked off a program last fall at UNLV at their School of Hospitality, and so we're hoping we had the ambassador from Greece there visit as well, and so we're hoping to bring some students to Greece for internships as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
and enjoy the rest of the spring and enjoy the summer. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.